Riding motorcycles is a two-way street in that they provide us the best moments of our lives, yet they can also be the reason we experience our darkest days. That's a fair statement for Iain Barraclough and how he came to building one of the cleanest Yamaha SR500s I've ever seen. Iain raced motocross as a youngster and was instantly addicted to motorcycles, so much so that he decided to take up a career in the industry as a motorbike mechanic. But his passion for moto quickly turned to resentment after a crash saw him break his neck in multiple places, which just so happened to coincide with a close friend also battling serious injuries in a separate motorcycle related incident. He stepped away from motorcycling altogether, quitting his job as a mechanic, and didn't even entertain motorbikes for almost 3 decades, where he then decided to start building and restoring vintage motocross bikes. Iain admits restoring motocross bikes is more of a case of replacing and bolting on parts rather than building something unique, which led him to source an SR500 for what would be his first ever custom build. The donor for Iain's project is a 1988 Yamaha SR500 import from Japan, which he was able to get his hands on locally here in Western Australia after remaining incredibly patient for one to surface. "I had the urge to build something," said Iain. "I knew the SR500s, the motor hadn't changed for years. It's just that basic 500 single, and I wanted that single. I've restored a bunch of motocross bikes and rebuilt bikes from scratch, but I've never done anything with a road bike where I could really change it. Restoring motocross bikes is virtually putting new parts on. There's not much that you can do in terms of cutting the frame up and changing the whole look. I had an idea in my head and I had a vision of it, and I just searched until I could find a really good SR. I bought this from a guy down in Bunbury. He didn't like it because he didn't like kickstarting it. That was another reason why I wanted the 500 single. I wanted a Kickstarter on the bike." This is no rags to riches build. The bike was in incredibly clean condition when Iain picked it up, meaning he could spend more time customizing it rather than making it mechanically sound. In fact, it was in such good condition that people kept telling Iain it was too nice to chop up, but that didn't deter him from building the bike he had envisioned for so long. Clean is probably a word I'm using way too much in this video, but there's no better way to describe this SR500. Iain says he was constantly ensuring the lines of the bike flow throughout every step of the build process, and that meant some pretty significant modifications were undertaken to fulfill his vision. He outsourced the major fabrication to his good friend Tom at Sideshow Cycles, who completed work to the rear of the frame, battery box and headlight, while the seat was also sent off for upholstery at a company called Beyond Trim. Much of the wiring, lights and switches are all of Iain's handiwork, and if you look closely at the rear fender, you'll notice it's the standard front fender that's been modified to suit. The front forks have been cleaned up, delugged and lowered by 3 inches to help with the stance of the bike, plus he replaced the shocks, while the tank has been imported from Japan and modified to fit. I wanted a clean look with really clean lines. Some people say I've tried to build a motocross bike, and it did have Renthal motocross bars on it, but I always knew I would build bars especially for it. I like that it has really clean lines, and that was the aim that I always had. I didn't want the bike to look like it just had stuff bolted onto it. When I was building it, I was always looking if everything flowed into each other. Now, while your eyes are probably drawn to other areas of this amazing bike, it's the handlebars that are probably the most unique part on this motorcycle. They've been built specifically for Iain, who's still struggling with those niggling injuries he sustained in his younger days. Iain and the Sideshow Cycle crew went through multiple different bends and styles before settling on a specification that would bring him the most comfortable riding position. All the wiring at the controls have been run internally through the bars, and the indicators are tiny and discreet to help with the overall look and feel of this bike. And if you've ever heard a Yamaha SR500, you know just how good it sounds, which he's only enhanced by bolting on an exhaust system that not only sounds incredible, but also flows with the look of the motorcycle. What are your thoughts on Iain's custom Yamaha SR500 bobber? Let me know in the comments below. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you're digging it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.